the reality. Weekly portion, guys. Weekly portion of Vayishlach, which takes me from the Abraham Accord, which the UAE is part of, to the Isaac Accords. Have you ever heard about the? I'm sure you've heard about the Abraham Accords, but how about the Isaac Accords? Have you heard about them?
No, in Germany,
No,
it's not a thing.
it's not a thing. Oh, you haven't
Haven't
heard about it yet. So it's
haven't.
right. So it's a new thing, though. It's a new thing. The president of Argentina, Juan Javier Milei, just spoke about the fact that he is expanding the Abraham Accords and opening a branch of the Abraham Accord called the Isaac Accords. And he decided to start these agreements between South American nations and Israel, and he will be the first, and they call it the Isaac Accords. I kid you not, I saw him saying it, even though today you can never know with the AI and stuff like that. But no. The Isaac Accords, and the idea, I think, is premised on the fact that the Roman world, okay, of which Spanish-speaking world is part of Latin languages, Romanized Roman languages, are the brother of Jacob. And the weekly portion of Vayishlach focuses on the relationship between the two brothers, Jacob and Esau, okay? And the Haftarah is talking about that relationship as well. When the Haftarah, the case of the Haftarah is very interesting in the Parasha in our Parasha, in our weekly portion, because it's the only case where we read a whole book of the Bible as a Haftarah. We read the whole book of Obadiah, one chapter. Okay, it's not that long, but it's a whole book. And we talk about that relationship between Jacob and Esau, which traditionally later on, the rabbis would identify Rome and the Roman Empire and Christianity in its early form, and even I would say Byzantine and basically throughout rabbinic literature and later on in medieval time, Rome is almost synonymous with Christianity. And you understand, since it became the official religion of the Roman Empire, Byzantine Empire. You know, people talk about the Byzantines. They didn't even know they were Byzantines. Okay, they were Romans. Okay, they didn't consider themselves Byzantines. Okay, but we just look at them as the Christian Rome or the Eastern Rome after that division and the acceptance of Christianity as the religion of the empire as Byzantines. In any case, we'll start with the weekly portion and the relationship between Jacob and Esau, and the relationship that is reflected by the book of Obadiah. And hopefully we'll get to talk about places that are mentioned in the Parasha, of which we have quite a few, and we'll read and talk about these matters. So the Parasha starts with these verses, Genesis 32, 4 and 5, from two brothers to two nations, the relationship between the weekly portion, the Parasha, and the Haftarah. And let's start reading, guys. So we have two verses here. Let's have someone read the first verse and translate, and then we'll do the second verse. We'll touch on grammatical issues and so forth. Go ahead, Susanna. How are you? I hear that Ireland will not be participating in the Eurovision or something like that, or
We're pardon the expression, assholes.
No, you're saving money for the taxpayer. Come on. Yeah.
Well, we don't want to make everybody no, it's for some reason our government is pretty blind to the reality of what's going on. They don't seem to love Israel the way they should. However, that said, an awful lot of humans living in Ireland do support Israel. I am by far not the only one.
Very good. Very good. I know that if I'm in Ireland,
You have a home.
yeah. And they had a big issue with changing the name of a park that was named
Oh,
after
we
the
sent letters in complaining about that and found out it was a non-starter anyway.
yeah, it's not happening, you're saying.
No, no, it's not happening.
Yeah.
But it
So for
was
those of us who
one
are
of the
not,
radical
yeah,
anti-blind people had proposed that because they didn't like any connection with Israel. Well, sorry guys, our first president, just what you gonna do,
yes. So Chaim Herzog, the current president of Israel is Yitzhak Herzog. He comes from very blue blood Israeli family. Okay, his father was a president as well, and his grandfather was a chief rabbi before his. But his father was also an officer in the British military, and his grandfather was a chief rabbi of Ireland. So there is a park named after him, after the father.
Herzog Park,
Yeah.
yeah.
And they wanted to change it. Susanna is saying it's a non-starter. In Israel, it made the news. Yeah.
Well, I'm not surprised,
Uh,
I'm just so sad and so embarrassed.
don't worry. I'm telling you that if again, sorry for mentioning the news, if current president Isaac Herzog is gonna pardon Netanyahu, I think they will have debates about naming park after him here as well.
Well, they'll have to pardon Ireland while he's at it.
Yeah,
It's like,
maybe.
I apologize for the behavior of my nation.
No, you don't have to apologize. You're not like
In the same way Daniel apologized for the behavior of his nation.
okay. Let's see the first verse of the parasha.
Excuse my bad reading, but I
No,
will.
it's all right. That's my fault. That's on me. For not being consistent enough throughout the last 2 years. Go ahead.
Well, and I was busy praying in English. Vayishlach Yaakov mal achim lefanav el Esav oto.
Achiv.
Achiv, of course. I don't know, oto. Achiv aretza seir sede Edom. Yaakov sent messengers ahead to his brother Esau in the land of Seir, the country of Edom.
Right. So on the first verse of the parasha, we get the three names of Esav, the brother of Yaakov, Seir, and Edom. All of these three names are related not to basically the same person. And this is not a big surprise because we do have different names for the same individual. We know that Yaakov is also named Israel, okay, and we have that. We also have a deep connection between the name of an individual, the name of the area associated with him, and his descendants. So think about the very basic example of Jacob or Yaakov. whose name is also Yisrael. So when we talk about Yisrael, okay, we talk about the individual Jacob, whose name becomes Israel, okay. We also talk about the collective of his descendants and anyone who joins that collective, okay. And we also talk about the land associated with him and that collective. So that's when one says Edom, for instance, he may refer to the land, to the people, and to the individual. As with Israel, Yehuda, and many others. Because the perception of nationality, okay, people, I don't know if you hear that constantly, but there is kind of a wide repeated claim that nationality is a phenomenon of the 19th century or something like repeated again, time and again. It's a debate. It's not the only opinion there is around, so there is, in the biblical perception of nations, it's definitely not 19th century phenomenon, okay. By the 19th century, I think the Bible was already well established, and the perception of collectives and nations was maybe different a little bit from today, but was indeed in existence, maybe in a slightly different way than today. But the relationship between Esau and Jacob leads to that relationship between the people of Israel and the people of Esau, or the people of Edom. And since the two are brothers, okay, there is a brotherly relationship expected, okay, even when it's not happening. Okay, let's look at it from a different angle. Esau would not have any issues with Jacob if he were not to be his brother. Okay, his claim is, oh, you're my brother, you took what was rightfully mine as the older brother. And the same goes for the other side. We have expectations, or we have certain behaviors that are stemming from the fact that Esau is the brother of Jacob, for instance, not to fight with them when coming from Egypt, because they are our brother and they were given that region. And the same goes for the book of Obadiah. Okay, let's see the second verse that describes the basically what's happening in the weekly portion, and that's Jacob coming back home to Israel. Okay, so let's see the second verse. When Jacob is sending those angels, obviously the word malachim, which in post-biblical Hebrew is divine angels, but in biblical Hebrew is simply messengers, may be messengers of God, hence what we would call angels, but maybe just messengers. Angels comes from Greek, angelos, messenger. Okay, let's see the next verse, guys. Don't be shy. Starting with the words Vaitzav Otam. Jackie, do you want to read?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I couldn't figure out how to raise the hand. Vayetzav Otam Lemor Ko Tom Ron Ladonai
Ladoni.
Ladoni, Le'esav, Ko, Amar, Avdecha, Yaakov, Im, Laven, Garti, Ve'echar, Ad Atah, and instructed them as follows: Thus shall you say to my lord Esau, thus says your servant Jacob, I stayed with Laban and remained until now.
Right. So we have Jacob sending these messengers to Esau, and this is a classical verse in biblical interpretation. Anyone who knows anything about Jewish biblical interpretation knows that the most famous and the first systematic commentator on the whole Bible is Rashi. Rashi usually talks about the pshat, the face value interpretation of the text, usually. But sometimes he goes to towards other explanations, and there is a very famous Rashi on the word garti, okay, which constitutes the letters Tav, Resh, Yod, and Gimel. Do you know what is the alphanumerical value of these letters together, guys? So Tav is 400, Resh is 200, Yod is 10, and Gimel is 3. Altogether,
613.
613. So, you know, when Jacob is, according to Rashi, talks with Esau, he tells him, even though I lived with Lavan, I kept my identity. I kept all 613 commandments. Obviously, this is anachronistic by nature, but to say that Jacob is coming home and saying, I am, according to Rashi, I'm not afraid, because I did keep my identity. So, Tariag mitzvot shamarti. And the joke is that, you know, people, if you quote the first half, you know, if you quote to people in Lavan Garti, they don't know to complete the verse, they just know to complete what Rashi says, because how prominent Rashi became and how prominent this interpretation became. But you can see the messenger formula. He sends messengers, malachim, and he instructs them to open their message with what we call the messenger formula. Ko amar so-and-so, and then what follows. This is very common with the prophets, who are God's messengers. And then, you know, the prophets are expressing God's message by saying, Ko amar Adonai. Okay, thus says the Lord. Okay. In this case, Ko amar Avdecha Yaakov. Yes, Ulrike.
Gavti is the basic root from Ger, staying as a stranger.
Yes. So Garti means I've resided, I've temporarily resided, related to the word ger, sojourner, someone who is not a like original or not a set autochthonic native of a certain place. Okay. And Garti would be the first person common singular form of the verb. You can see the Tav Yod, like Shamarti, in the Rashi, right? He says the Tarag Mitzvot Shamarti. So Garti, I have resided, I have sojourned, I have remained. You can see translated here. from Gimel Vav Reish, first person common singular of the katal in the kal binyan. So that's garti.
I sense it's in the same meaning as Rashi came with the gematria numbers. When I'm a stranger in a country, I'm not from there, but I can be stay as a stranger in my religion or thinking about these matters and not go common with.
Very good. That is very correct. And here you have a good example of how even this non-plain view interpretation of the text is based on something that is there. And that is the case many times with rabbinic interpretation. If someone can say, come on, alphanumerical value, gematria, that's not something that even has like biblical roots. It's a Hellenistic concept. That's all nice and maybe correct. But what you did now is to really understand the core of these suggestions in rabbinic literature by saying the biblical plain explanation of Gartis, I did not settle there. I was a sojourner there. I remained there, but I wasn't part of that culture. I did not fully integrated. I did not assimilate. And the rabbis have reflected that in the very famous interpretation of Rashi here, V'tariag mitzvot shamarti. While I kept all 613 commandments, meaning I kept my identity. I was just, that was not my true home. It was, I remained there, but I was a foreigner there. So you can see that the deep, plain meaning of the text, and I said deep, plain, but there is something like that. Okay, the core of the truth that is reflected here is delivered by that rabbinical literature, that rabbinical interpretation, in a tool that is post-biblical, essentially. Okay? So thank you very much, Ulrike. That was important. Okay, it's not a point I would have made unless you would have you brought it up. And that's something that is often the case with rabbinic literature. Sometimes you get an interpretation that is, you say, come on, guys, that's so far from anything that is like reasonable even to suggest. And then you say, you know what? If you deeply look at it, it's actually connects with the text itself. So thank you. Okay.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's everybody. Okay. And now jumping to the beginning of the Haftarah. As we said, the Haftarah is the first verse of the book of Obadiah. We read the whole book. Okay. So let's see. Chazon Obadiah. Guys, don't be shy. The vision of Obadiah. I want to hear someone.
I don't see the Hebrew on the screen, so I'll read my Hebrew.
Okay, you don't see the Hebrew on the screen?
No.
Okay, how about now? Do you see it now?
I do not.
So what do you see?
You.
Okay, so try, it should be, you should have like maybe screen or options or something in what you see. While I am quite handsome, let's see if we can do it again. How about now?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Okay. Obadiah. Ko amar Adonai le'edom
Oh, no.
shemu
The first one is Adonai. The second one is,
yeah.
it's the
It's not.
same tetragrammaton, but note the vowel pointing.
Oh, Elohim.
Right.
Le'edom shemua shamanu me'et Adonai v'tzir bagoyim shulach kumu benakuma aleha la milchama. The vision of Obadiah, thus says the Lord God, concerning Edom. We have heard a message from the Lord, and an ambassador is sent among the nations. Arise ye, and let us rise up against her in battle.
Okay. So, Ko amar Adonai Elohim le'edom. Okay, remember the messenger formula that we had in the beginning of the weekly portion. Ko amar avdecha Yaakov, ko amar Adonai Elohim le'edom. Okay, so le'edom, we have the lamed preposition, which can serve various purposes in biblical Hebrew. It can be to Edom, okay, and it can be concerning Edom. Here, translated concerning Edom, which is correct when talking about prophecies about people or nations. But there is a lot of second person reference to Edom also in the prophecy. So there is also talking to Edom, not just concerning Edom. Note, Shemua Shamanu, Kumu Venakuma. Hebrew is not shy from repeating a certain root. That's not considered to be bad style in Hebrew. English is different. Okay? Like repeating the same word, you have a drink or you drink, you have a dream or you dream. In English, if you say, I drink a drink or I dream a dream, there is, unless you're a Jean Valjean, right? I dream a dream in Les Miserables, right? There is a point there. But essentially, guys, you avoid these repeating the same word. So Shemua Shamanu, we heard a message, not something that, but literally we heard something that is heard. Shemua. Kumu venakuma. Here you can see arise and let us rise up. That's keeping the Hebrew style. Kumu venakuma. Both of these are not indicative forms, but volitive forms. Both of these forms are expressing the emotional relationship to that action. They're not just telling you a story, but they are expressing that will to do that, encouraging, okay, arise and let us rise. Both of these in English reflect that volition, that will. So we have the kumu, which is what we would call imperative in the masculine plural, speaking to more than one person in the second person, and expressing certain kind of modal verb that would be added. You should, you must, or I encourage you to do something, okay? Then nakuma is the first person common plural, a quotative. Let us do this and that. Let us rise up. Okay, kumu v'nakuma, this combination between the imperative and the quotative is a way to even repeat and stress out that volition of the speaker to do something together. Lechu v'nelecha hagilgal unchadesh sham hamelucha. Let us go and renew the kingship, renew the kingship over Israel. Okay, and those of you who visited the synagogue, you know that Lecha Dodi, one of the most famous songs of the Shabbat Eve service, has Likrat Shabbat Lechu v'nelcha. Okay, so we have Lechu v'nelcha, Kumu v'nakuma, both combining the imperative and the quotative, stressing the volition of the speaker. In this case, saying that the nations are coming to get Edom. Okay, they're speaking to each other, let's conquer Edom, let's fight against Edom. So where is Edom? Where is Edom? Good question. We have a map, and let's talk a little bit about where is Edom. And it really depends on when the question is asked, when as in which historical period. Okay, so Edom is, here is the, I'll change a color because red on red is not so nicely visible. This is the connection between the Dead Sea here and the Gulf of Eilat, as we Israelis call it, or the Gulf of Aqaba, as it is known in English and in Arabic. Okay, and the area of Seir, the original land of Edom, is what would be on the eastern side, yet in many periods it included, and this is the largest, it included parts in the western side. Remember, there is no real division. It's not like a river with a river Jordan. Okay, that's the first temple area of Edom. Again, in its height, in its peak. You should know that they're not really borders in the same very exact manner that we have in some countries. Think about, I don't know if we have really modern examples for it, because people like Rick are looking at the land and surveying it and looking and defining the borders very neatly. Everybody's got their own to the inch borders, but in the ancient world it wasn't like that. Some people, and it's very interesting because we see that in the Bible, you see that certain names and certain names repeating in families would exist both in Edomite families and in Judean families. You see same names repeating in genealogical lines of both Judah and Edom. A person, let's take my grandmother as an example, okay? My grandparents grew up, were born in an area that is today Ukraine. But that area in Eastern Europe was Austro-Hungary, Hungary. After the First World War, it wasn't Hungary anymore, and Soviet Russia. So that area changed its like sovereignty several times, and people there, spoke several languages if they were a little bit more learned than just staying in your village, and areas were not as clear-cut defined as we are used to today. So that's a little bit about Edom. The darker shade of red here is Edomia as opposed to Edom. Anyone knows the difference between Edom and Edomia?
It's Greek. It's later in time. Idumea is the Greek word for Edom, is it not?
It is. It's a later term, but it also reflects a different region, hence. And Edomia is the Second Temple term, okay? And the Edomites were pushed west by the Nabateans. Guys, the Nabateans, very interesting people. When we go to Israel, if we have a little time, I hope that we get to visit a Nabatean city, okay, and talk about the Nabateans and their possible connection to the book of Jeremiah, okay? So that's the Nabateans, and they're pushing the Edomites to the west, hence we get Edomia of Second Temple period, and even the area of Hebron, okay? The area of Hebron is in what would be Edomia, okay? And one famous herald comes from an Edomite family. His grandfather Antipas, his father Antipater, and him, Herod. It's a family of Edomite converts. Okay, the Edomites were approaching Hanukkah, so it's a good time to mention that the Hasmonean kings, they had a very, very outstanding policy in the history of Judaism when they told certain people that were in the area of the Hasmonean kingdom, listen, all nice and well, this is a Jewish land. You have a choice. You either join the Jewish people or you leave the land, but the land is Jewish. And so they converted certain people. To what level of coercion? That's a good question. Some of those people, anyway, practice the law of the land. There is a connection between the land and the law, and if the law is religious, there is a connection between the land and God, and that local God. So they were anyway practicing the religion of the land that was close to Judaism if the land is Jewish. So some were more coerced, other forced, but it was a very short period in the history of the Jewish people. You know that Judaism is not on the hunt for new members. It's actually on very much the opposite. Even within Israel, people with some Jewish ancestry have to jump through many hoops in order to actually become officially Jewish. We are, as a family, we are now in the process of helping a soldier whose name is Eric. He is coming to us for Shabbat and for prayers. He's joining us because he's taking that process. Now, understand, his father is Jewish. Okay, he comes from a Jewish ancestry, and he went through the Israeli school system. He's an Israeli. I would not be able to tell that he is not Jewish. Okay, and the army has kind of a program that if they want, they can do the conversion studies within their military service. So we now have like a member of that program with us. They always have to have a family that like adopts them for the process. So we have one. Again, he's already an Israeli. He serves in the military. He speaks Hebrew like any other person. It took him some time to learn that he's not Jewish, because he is going through the regular school system. Judaism is not a big issue, in his family, evidently, but Jewish culture, Hebrew Judaism, is in the tap water here. The whole calendar is organized around it. Everybody speaks Hebrew. The culture is Jewish. There is a linkage between the nation and Judaism. So he's, for all intents and purposes, except for Jewish law, traditional law, Jewish. So it's a very interesting process, and it's not so easy, because they are expected to be more Jewish than their Jewish friends that they grew up with if they want to join Judaism. It's a big issue, So that's that. What did you, Betsy? Did you have a question? I saw someone wrote a question.
Someone quoted a verse in the chat. I saw that. Now they are saying a lot of the young people are returning to Judaism in Israel right now.
This
That there
is a
is
fascinating phenomenon.
yes.
I don't know about returning, because they've never left Judaism, but I think that Judaism, the practical aspects of Judaism, some practical aspects of Judaism are being more pronounced in their lives. That is definitely interesting and correct. There is something that I saw this week that was mind-blowing for me, and that is one of the fervent speakers for non-religiosity in Israel saying texts that reminded me like my high school yeshiva rabbis 25, 30 years ago. What do I mean by that? He was talking against what we call traditionalism or Masoretic. When I grew up, there was kind of a strong division between religiosity or religious people and traditional people. The rabbis where I learned, they said, "Oh, what do you mean being traditionalist? You should do the whole thing, the whole package. Don't do whatever you want." And so I felt some of them, I'm saying the rabbis, obviously not everybody, right? That Jewish rabbis cannot agree on anything. But generally speaking, there was a sense of you have to be fully committed. You have to be either part of the whole, you have to accept everything, or if you're not practicing everything, you're not part of it, Very, very kind of distinct division between if you accept the halacha, the practical aspect of Jewish law, or not. And today in Israel, the people decide to adopt many aspects without necessarily committing to the whole package. And I heard that speaker, who's a comedian, very anti-religious, very he's married to a left-wing politician. He's very kind of progressive, the type that you would think similar to the American late night talk show hosts and stuff like that, some of them. So he was saying these texts that I heard 25 years ago from the rabbis, but to the other direction. He says, how come your traditional religion is not fun, Judaism is not fun? He said it as a comedian. So he said it starts with cutting off and then it goes down from there. That's, So he had he's a funny guy. Yeah, I'm not saying he's not, but the point that he was making was again trying to drive a wedge, a very strong wedge between accepting the full package and being completely secular, completely non-religious. And today in Israel, traditionalism is very strong. People can, let's say, a popular singer can dress however she wants, but yet keep Shabbos, okay? Or someone can be proud of him going with tzitzit, okay, with the traditional garment that has the strings on the fringes on the corners of the garment, and say, the tzitzit like Rick is showing us, and saying on the interview, and I'm quoting word for word, I'm a fucking gay with a tzitzit. This is what he says about himself. Yeah. So I want you to understand that traditionalism is very strong today in Israeli society. Very interesting, fascinating, also related to nationalism. I cannot say it's only spiritual, and I cannot say it's not related to the war. It is to an extent, but not only. This is something that started before. It is more pronounced by the war, I think. But it's fascinating if you're looking at Israeli culture. And when we meet, I'll show you. That's, that person I can tell you is like that. That person like that. When you're in a society, you can tell by small hints and, a lot about people. So, from two brothers to two nations, and the book of Obadiah is talking about the punishment that would be visited upon the Edomites because of their relationship or because of their behavior towards the people of Israel, on the basis of what was expected from them, because they are brothers. So there is a difference between being a stranger and being estranged, or being a foreigner and being alienated. Okay, because if you're estranged or alienated, it suggests a different basis to be expected. If someone whom I don't know passes me and does not say hello, okay, I don't know him, he doesn't know me, okay, he's not expected to say anything. But if I go on the street and I see one of you guys and I behave, because all you are very well behaved, but if I misbehave and don't say hello, you will be surprised, and not in a good sense. So this is the premise for the special book of Obadiah, who's saying, okay, I expected something else. Okay, and let's see these verses 10 and 11 in Obadiah. Go ahead, don't be shy. Ulrike, go ahead.
מחמס אחיך יעקב תכסך בושה ונכרת לעולם.
ונכרת.
ונכרת לעולם. For the outrage to your brother Jacob, disgrace shall engulf you, and you shall perish forever.
Right. So, to your brother or of your brother, okay, but mechamas אחיך יעקב, תכסך בושה, ונכרת לעולם. אחיך יעקב. Because of that. And again, the following verse is stressing that idea that we said before. When, and we'll see that, when those strangers and foreigners came and besieged Jerusalem, you behaved like them. So you should, why are you singling out Edom? Because I had different expectations from Edom. Because they are our brothers. Okay? And let's see. Olinka, your hand is up because you wanted to read. Okay. Saul, how about reading? Oh,
Okay.
you read already?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, you read right. Adonai Elohim. Yeah, we had that tetragrammaton with the vowel pointing of Elohim. Guys, don't be shy. Verse 11, going once, going twice. Don't be shy, guys. The bashful cannot be a good student, and the ill-tempered cannot be a good teacher. Lynn, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. So glad to be here tonight.
So glad to have you here tonight. Yeah, how are things in Canada?
I'm kind of like Susanna, want to apologize for my country.
Guys, if every Israeli had to apologize for what we sometimes do, yeah, it would be a very long day.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so try this. Beyom Amadecha Mineged Beyom Shevot Zarim Hail Lo Venochrim Ba'u She'arav Ve'al Yerushalayim Yadu Koral Gam Ata Ke'ahad Mehem.
Right. And English?
Oh, sorry. On that day when you stood aloof, when aliens carried off his goods, when foreigners entered his gates and cast lots for Jerusalem, you were as one of them.
Right. Since you're Canadian, I should have brought French as well. Like, right. In any case, you can see that the prophet is here talking about not just participating, which is also mentioned gam ata ke'achad mehem, when they cast lots against Jerusalem or concerning Jerusalem, va'al Yerushalayim yadu goral, had to divide Jerusalem possibly. Remember that the division of land was done by casting lots, maybe. Nochrim ba'u she'arav, they approached the gates, they're besieging the city. Shevot zarim chilo, the foreigners captured its might, its people, its goods. You stood aside. Amadcha mineged, you stood on the opposite side, standing, not partaking. Okay? Even, look, it doesn't say that they actively participated. They stood aside, and possibly when the spoils were divided, you joined. They are not even accused here of fighting. It's the other people. It's the Babylonians, okay, if we're talking about the destruction of the first temple. But just by standing apart, aloof, okay, by estranging yourself, by alienating yourself, by, okay, one could say, listen, I cannot help Jerusalem anymore. I can at least get something out of it. Okay. But no, that's not what you expect a brother to do. Okay. So the brothers, Jacob and Esau, who are struggling between them, are later on reflected by this nations colliding, even though they're brothers, or we're holding Edom to a higher standard. By the way, Velo zacheru berit achim, the prophet Amos is also accusing the Edomites of not remembering the covenant of brothers. God is forbidding the people of Israel to fight against the Edomites and so forth. It should be said that the relationship between Israel and Edom in the Bible is, again, even though they're brothers, the relationship is complicated. The infamous enemy of Israel, the Amalekites, are descendants of Esau, okay, grandson of Esau. Okay, we'll see that in the next weekly portion, or even in this weekly portion, in the last chapter, in chapter 36. And we have the king of the Amalekites, Agag, and Saul fighting the Amalekites. And we have the Haman of the book of Esther as a descendant of Agag. He is Haman the Agagite, Haman HaAgagi in the book of Esther. So that's part of that relationship, and this is why the book of Obadiah is talking about Edom. A little bit, another connection between the weekly portion and the Haftarah. So upon the end of the story or the discussion between Jacob and Esau and how they reconcile, Jacob is preparing, the rabbis say that Jacob has prepared 3 avenues of action, have taken 3 course of actions: prayer, gifts, and preparations for fighting. Okay, he prays to God. Okay, he gives gifts to Esau, and he's also making arrangement within his camp how to protect it. So we think about these 3 avenues of action when we face struggles. Okay, we pray, we try to solve things diplomatically, but we're also prepared to fight. That's these 3 avenues of actions that were given to us by Jacob. And after the successful meeting between Jacob and Esau, Esau says, let's go together. Let's go together. And Jacob is not very keen on that idea. So Jacob is giving him an excuse. I left the excuse out, just the suggestions and the suggestion and the answer. Jacob says, listen, I have a big family. It's complicated. I have a lot of flock. I cannot, I don't have the pace that you can take with your fighting men. I'll go slowly, and eventually I'll visit you. Okay, but Jacob doesn't come to visit Esau. And if you promise, you have to keep your promise. So the rabbis ask, when will Jacob come visit Esau? And the answer is found in the Haftarah, in the last verse of the book of Obadiah. And let's read the promise, the suggestion, the promise, and the prophecy about the realization of it. Again, connecting our weekly portion to the Haftarah portion. Let's see the top one, verse Genesis 33, 12, and then parts of 14. Don't be shy. Let's. Ulrike, go ahead.
Okay. ויאמר ניסע ונלכה ואלך לנגדך.
Right. Again, nis'a, nelecha, cohortative forms. Ve'elecha is, interestingly, that would be called cohortative as well, even though literally, if it's singular, it shouldn't be cohortative, but never mind. Nis'a ve'nelecha ve'elecha lenegdecha. Again, you can see nis'a, nelecha, elecha, repeating the same root, hey lamed chaf. Let us journey together. Essentially, that's the suggestion by Esau. Now let's see the answer by Jacob. Don't be shy, guys. It's a good opportunity to practice Hebrew. Jackie, go ahead. Yeah.
Ya'avar ne
Ya'avorna, this would be a kamatz katan, a kamatz in a closed unaccented syllable. Thus, ya'avorna.
Ya'avorna.
Right, and the makef is connecting the two words. So even though there are two words, they're read as one.
Okay. Adonai.
Adoni, my, right?
Adoni. Lifnei. Avdo. Va'ani. Et Nahala. Le'iti. Ad. Asher. Avo el Adoni. Seira.
Right, so that's the answer already. Can you read the English? Let my Lord.
Let my Lord go on ahead of his servant while I travel slowly until I come to my Lord in Seir.
Right. So Jacob is saying, listen, I don't have the same pace. I'll go slowly, you'll go fast. Eventually, I'll visit you. But Jacob doesn't go to Esau. Right? Jacob crosses the Jordan, crosses Nahal Jabbok. This is kind of a map of the area of Mahanaim, where the previous weekly portion ends and ours starts at Mahanaim. He crosses the Jabbok, Wadi Zarka in Jordan. He sees the face of God, Peniel, the area of Sukkot, and Peniel, possibly the area of Sukkot, modern day Dir Allah, Jordan, and he crosses the Jordan, okay, and he goes from the Jordan, he goes to, after crossing in Sukkot, again, verses from our weekly portion, and I'll read them quickly because I do want to show the journey a little bit, and then we'll go back to the last verse of the book of Obadiah, telling us when will Jacob visit Esau. ויעקב נשא סוכותה ויבן לו בית ולמקנהו עשה סוכות. על כן קרא שם המקום סוכות. So that's Dir Allah here across, almost before crossing the Jordan. Then he crosses in Jisr Damya, modern day Gesher Adam Ha'ir. That would be where the people of Israel also cross. Okay, and then he goes to Shechem, where we have the story of Shechem and Dinah. Let me show you on a map the route that Jacob is taking. Okay, bear with me. Okay, you can see a map just so you get the This is the Israeli coastline. That's the Sea of Galilee. That's the, oh, you don't see it. How about now? Okay, so Israeli, you see my cursor? Okay, so that's the Israeli coastline. That's Gaza Strip, okay? And that's the Dead Sea, and that's the Sea of Galilee. Where he crosses is roughly between the Sea of Galilee and the Dead Sea. This is the area of Sukkot. This is Wadi Zarka, the Nahal Jabbok. The biblical name is Nahal Jabbok. And he crosses here, and you can see that there is a natural road here. This is the road through which the people of Israel go. This is the road through which Jacob is going. And this is one of the main roads to cross Israel in ancient times, east and west. You can see that there is a kind of a big valley between the mountainous areas of Samaria. You can see this road. This is east-west, not north-south, but it connects to that north-south famous Route 60. So Jacob is going through this road, Derech Mevo HaShemesh, the road of where the sun sets, okay, where the Israelites later on would also enter the land of Israel, going through the area later on to be Tirzah, one of the capitals of the northern kingdom of Israel, and ending, okay, if you continue in that road, you pass Tevetz, the city where Avimelech would die by a woman, or Oive, okay, and then you get to the area of Shechem. This is the Wadi, and you get into Shechem. So Jacob goes to Shechem, and there is a small village called Shalem or Sulem, okay, near Shechem, okay. Vayavo Yaakov Shalem ir Shechem. So he comes to, you can even see the Arabic name Salem. Can you see this, guys? Salem. How do you say shalom in Arabic? Salam. So the village Salem is preserving the name Shalem. Okay, and our weekly portion says, Vayavo Yaakov Shalem ir Shechem. Shalem, that is near the city of Shechem. Vayichan et penei ha'ir. He camps outside the city. Okay, and that's the camping of Jacob is roughly here, and he buys the burial that would be later on of Joseph, Kever Yosef. So that's Shechem. He continues to the south, continues to Beitel, and then to Efrat, and he buries Rachel there. So just to remind ourselves, the verses of this weekly portion that do portray that journey. So Vayavo Yaakov Shalem ir Shechem. Okay, Vayichan et penei ha'ir, he camped east of the city, but very close. Et penei ha'ir. Vayiken et chelkat hasadeh, he bought the field. Okay, and what he does with the field, he builds later on, Joseph will be buried in that field, okay, and Jacob is promising Joseph the city of Shechem. Va'ani natati lecha Shechem echad al achecha, and I am giving you the city of Shechem, which I have taken from the Amorites. Then God is telling him to continue to the city of Bethel. Vayomer Elohim el Yaakov, kum ale Bethel v'shev sham. Go to Bethel and shev sham, as opposed to garti. Okay, remain there. Again, it's not that he's not moving away, but he's not a sojourner, okay, in the land of Israel anymore. And build an altar to the God that was seen to you, okay, when you fled from Esau, when you left the land. So by returning to Bethel, Yaakov is completing the circle of running away and coming back to the same place and building that altar as he promised. He said when he left, "Ve'ha'even hazot asher samti matzeva." Okay, and this stone that I've erected as a standing stone, matzeva. Okay, so he's returning to that place to offer that offering, and then he buries Rachel. This is already done in what is called Route 60, from Shechem. From Shechem down to Bethel, down to Efrat, and then eventually to Hebron. But the question is, where is Efrat? Where is Bethlehem? Or is it near Bethlehem? Is it close? Is it far? Again, something to be discussed when we actually get there. Now, going back to the last verse of the book of Obadiah, when is the meeting gonna happen? Okay, let's see the last verse. Betsy, I see you're smiling, so go ahead.
Ve'alu Moshiim behar Zion lishpot et har Esav ve'haita ladonai hamluka. For liberators shall march up on Mount Zion to wreak judgment on Mount Esau, and dominion shall be the Lord's, God's.
Right.
Maluka is the kingdom, though, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yes, but Melucha, literally kingdom, kingship, but dominion in this context. So those, eventually the rabbis say, this is how Jacob is finally going to visit Esau. That's the point. Jacob says, I'll slowly get there, and slowly is not very well defined. So whenever, finally Obadiah talks about that judgment that will be visited on Esau because of his behavior. So a little bit about what we did. We've talked about the Parasha itself. We've talked about the relationship of Jacob and Esau as reflected in the Parasha and the Haftarah, the book of Obadiah, from two brothers to two nations, and the relationship, the expected relationship, and the prophecy against Edom because of that expected relationship. By no means we have covered everything that there is to say about the relationship between Jacob and Esau and the prospective nations of Israel and the nation of Edom. We did touch on some of these issues, and we've talked about some of the places mentioned in the parasha as far as their geography goes. Few things. So I'm, as you've noticed, I've not like charged anything, because I've not like done anything organized. Some of you have asked me about it. I'm not passing a jar or a hat, but whoever wants to kind of help this to continue is more than welcome. You've got my email. I will send it in the chat box as well, as far as the PayPal goes. So thank you for supporting this, and that's basically what I want to do. Like talk about the weekly portion and the Haftarah and the connections, and if there is something to talk about, like places, sites. We did some of these sites very quickly this time, understandably. So that's a little bit about that. And it's always good to see everybody. If there are any questions, I'm here.
Oh, I can ask a quick question.
Go ahead. Yeah, sure.
Which one? Who did you pick?
Whomever, guys.
Okay, so
you started speaking, so you go first.
Okay, go ahead. So
okay, so when the serpent was speaking to Eve, he spoke in masculine plural, and it's like if the serpent was from the south, he would have said "use all." So he was not just talking to Eve; he was talking to Adam, even though he was more concentrating on Eve. Adam was in the background listening to all because of the masculine plural. Would you see it that way?
not necessarily, but he's quoting God as saying that, and God spoke to both of them.
Well, but earlier,
אף כי אמר אלוהים לא תאכלו מכל עץ הגן, כי יודע אלוהים כי ביום אכולכם ממנו מות תמות. So right, he's not speaking to her in the second person because he's quoting God, who spoke to both of them.
Well, God spoke to Adam originally, not to both of them.
That is correct, but it's pentemutun. He spoke to Adam, but God spoke in the plural as well. At least part of what God said.
Okay, but then she hands him the fruit.
Right.
She doesn't go get him. She hands it to him.
So he's got a good excuse and he uses it. Okay. But God told him to begin with not to eat from that. He can say, I did not know. But he's not, it's not what he says. Maybe it's incorporated in what he says, but he doesn't say, oh, I didn't know that's from that tree. Maybe it was distinctive in the fruits. So he could not have said, oh, I didn't know. Okay, but when it comes to these, it's not, the rabbis had big discussions on what fruit it was even. So, yeah, okay. It's interesting. I'm not sure that it necessarily has to mean that he's talking to the other animals, but again, the reality that is reflected from that story is a reality different than what we're experiencing in the world around us. So maybe
Ulai.
Though ulai is not just maybe in biblical Hebrew. What I said here maybe would not be ulai of biblical Hebrew. Biblical Hebrew ulai, as opposed to modern Hebrew, express always a will towards a certain outcome. It's not just some kind of a perhaps, but it's a perhaps that I want it to happen or I don't want it to happen, but I have emotional relationship to that outcome. Very interestingly.
Very.
Yeah, look it up. There are like 40 something different times of ulai in biblical Hebrew. They're never neutral as far as the emotional connection of the speaker.
That's really good.
Yeah. This is what they call pragmatics of biblical Hebrew also, not just very interesting. Yeah. Yeah, and the next question, yes.
Yes. Is this Obadiah the same relation in Ahab and
good question.
and Elijah and
Right. It's a good question. It's a question that I touched on a bit in our studies of the book of Jonah. So the rabbis do connect the two, but historically it is very unlikely.
Okay.
Okay.
Another
So
question.
again, going back to what we had with Ulrike earlier, when the rabbis say something, oftentimes it does not have to be perceived in the historical or scientific sense, but as a point they want to make. What is the connection that they find between Obadiah of Ahab, Obadiah who is over the house, okay, Obadiah Asher al Beit, okay, the steward of Ahab, the CEO of Ahab Incorporated, and the prophet Obadiah. So they want to make a point to connect the two. But historically, it's not the same period. The book of Obadiah is probably prophesying on about 250 years after 250 years after Obadiah of Ahab. So unless he had a very longevity, and then yeah.
Another question is that's Shechem is the same area that we find the daughter getting raped, but also where the people are given
Right, the
time to say
covenant of
amen.
Shechem, very important, yeah.
And also an altar was built in that
no doubt.
Okay, so the altars are piling up there. Is that right?
Yeah, that's not a surprise. Again, we've talked about that today with Bethel, and the same concept of the piling up of the altars there. Abram also comes to the area of Shechem, okay, to Elon Moreh. Vayavor Avram ba'aretz ad mekom Shechem ad Elon Moreh. Abram passed through the land until the place of Shechem, until the oak of Moreh. So it's not a surprise to see those piling up of altars. And the same goes for Jerusalem, in a sense, as we believe that Har Moriah is the same mountain of Jerusalem as well. So it's very common to see that returning to that holy place. When we get there, we'll talk about all of these things, okay? And we'll see the road also, see everything. Guys, I shouldn't make so many promises, but I'm...
We're going to hold you to all of them, too.
God willing. Betsy.
I don't really have a question. I promised Frank that I would tell you hello from him, and he was very sad he couldn't be with us tonight. He had some family things going on.
Very good. And
we are thankful.
Yes, you should tell him, hopefully I get to tell him that I miss him and I love him a lot, and I do want to start thinking and preparing for our trip here in Israel. And I know
how long out are you thinking, Netanel?
How long the trip, or
no, how far in the future?
How far in the future? I don't know yet. I know listen, I want to have good weather to do it, which means I don't want to do it on June, July, August, or something like that. And I want to have enough time for people to know and prepare. So I don't know. If not until this summer, then then after the summer. I know that, again, to the extent of knowledge when it comes to active duty, I was earlier this week, when I'm off duty, I try to call the unit once a month to kind of see what's going on. So I called 1st of December. I have it on my, on my log, on my Google stuff, to call every 1st of the month. So I called. They told me, which I heard from friends, but it wasn't more official now, that we were planned to be called back on April, but now they talk about November. So yeah, but who knows? Yeah, I'm not, if we're fighting Canada and Ireland, maybe tomorrow, I don't know. Yeah. So that's the plan. I don't know yet. As soon as I know, maybe I'll let you know what are the options. Takes a lot of preparations, I know, both on your end, my end. We'll have to see how many people, and then do the logistics. It's going to be a bit of a challenge if I decide to do it, to have a company do the logistics, or do it ourselves, try to save some costs. I don't know yet. Okay.
Are you doing tours in the meantime here and there?
I'm doing a little bit of tours. I'll tell you the truth. I did few, but there's a problem, a very, very interesting problem, I think, that you should know. Israeli tour companies that match tour guides with Christian pilgrim tours, or people who come to the Holy Land, they don't like having guides that keep Shabbat, because the group on Shabbat drives here and there, and to Masada and Gedi if they're in Jerusalem and so forth. So usually, if you're a observant tour guide, they don't want you to lead tours of Christians who come to Israel to see the Holy Land. Now, I told them, listen, I wrote to them back, and I have a meeting later on this month as well. I told them, listen, you're missing on the best guides, because a secular person in Israel is not connected. I told them, listen, Jesus, his disciples, they were all religious Jews. Okay? In order to understand the message and to be that crowd to which the message was delivered, you have to be a religious Jew. You have to be familiar with those sources.
Yes.
You're missing on that.
It's okay. Charlie Kirk's book is coming out post. I pre-ordered it, but it's all about keeping Shabbat as a Christian. Right. So maybe that will change for you.
Yeah, maybe. So, guys, I will hopefully see you next week, and we'll be in touch. Bye-bye, guys.
Hopefully isn't good enough. You come back.
Yeah. Bye-bye, guys.